Good afternoon or good morning, everybody, and welcome to the InduSoft webinar about custom properties. My name is Fabio Terezinho, and I'll be the host for the webinar today. As usual, I'd like to thank each one of you, first of all, for your time today on the webinar, and especially for your continuous involvement with InduSoft, using the product, promoting the product, in spite of the economic challenges globally today. InduSoft keeps growing and keeps innovating and keeps increasing market share, thanks to each one of you that uses the product and promotes the product. So thank you very much, and thank you especially again for taking the time to watch the InduSoft webinars. So a quick agenda for today. This is a technical webinar, so we're going to focus on one particular feature from the product called custom properties. And I divided the presentation in 4 sections. A brief introduction, just the main concepts about this feature, what are the benefits, the goals of this feature. Then I'll dive into the details on how to use it, how to configure that, and I use the product using this feature and creating demos and examples. So it's a more practical demonstration on the benefits that you can take from this feature. Sorry. Then I'll go through some special scenarios, so some advanced cases where you can get even more benefits from the custom properties and solve really complex issues in an easy manner. And then I will open for Q&A at the end. But during the presentation, if you have any questions, any comments, please write them. Feel free to write them at any time. You can access the WebEx bar at the top of your monitor and click on the Q&A or in the chat box and just write your questions and your comments, and I will read each one of them and answer each one of them at the end of the presentation. With that, I'll get started with the definition. So custom properties, sometimes also known as mnemonics in the product, are nothing more than placeholders, aliases that you can configure in the InduSoft screen objects, animations, or even in screen scripts, and they are used as placeholders that can be replaced dynamically during the runtime to different values. So what is the benefit? Why do you use custom properties? Custom properties allows you to create generic objects called link symbols or generic templates, generic screens, and replace those placeholders, replace those custom properties by values or tags or even expressions during the runtime. So you can create generic interfaces, and for each instance of those interfaces, whether they are objects or entire screens, you can populate them dynamically during the runtime with different values based on the context. For example, you can create an object that is the representation of a valve or a motor or a PID faceplate, whatever it is that you have several instances in your particular project. Instead of rebuilding, and let's say you have a motor and you have 10 motors in your project, instead of building the model for the motors 10 times with change of colors, with commands, with labels, with alarms, everything, you build it just once, which is what we call the master symbol, and then you just create instances of this object for each real motor, for each real instance of the motor in your project. And then since you have different tags, different values from the PLCs, from the controllers, to demonstrate the status or the commands for each one of the motors, you use custom properties to assign to each instance of this object different values, different tags, different addresses for each one of the motors that you have in the plant floor. But you reuse the same template, the same master object. Same thing for screens, when it makes more sense to use the same screen for example, the same pop-up screen to display all information about a particular equipment. Instead of rebuilding this pop-up for each equipment, you build just one master screen, and when you use the open function to open the pop-up, you tell this screen, you dynamically populate the attributes, the objects on the screens, with information from the objects that you want to monitor or control from that particular pop-up. So again, if you have let's say 10 valves and you want to create a pop-up screen to visualize the values or control the valves, you don't have to build 10 different pop-up screens. You build just one, and when you open it, you use the custom properties as placeholders to replace the values with the tags for each one of the 10 valves that you have. And it will be much more intuitive and clear when we do some examples here with the product. So diving into the technical details, custom properties follow a simple syntax which is described here. It starts with the pound signs. Then you define the custom property name, which could be any name. It's just a placeholder, just an alias to identify each unique custom property. And then you have colon, and optionally a default value for the custom property when you are configuring them. So the custom property name must be between the pound signs and the colon. So the colon, the pound sign, custom property name, and colon are mandatory. You need to use them whenever you use the custom properties. And the custom property value is optional when you are configuring. You might want to have a default value there or just leaving blank. So during the runtime, when you assign a value to the custom property, the objects, the scripts will assume that new value. And during the runtime, the custom property value is the only thing executed by the runtime. If you go back to the syntax, everything between the pound sign and the colon, including the pound sign and the colon, are ignored by the runtime. So the runtime executes only the custom property value. And the custom property value can be either a literal numeric value, like in this example here. So in the first line, you have my num value is the name of the custom property, which is between pound sign and colon, and 10 is the actual value of the custom property. So the runtime executes only 10, ignores everything else. Another example is my text value, where the custom property name is my text value, and the actual value is ABC, a text, a string between double quotes. So the runtime executes only ABC. Can be a tag as well. So you see here, my tag is the custom property name, and second is the value of this custom property. And can be an expression between parentheses. So in the last example, my expression is the name of the custom property, and the actual value, what will be executed by the runtime, is minutes times 10 between parentheses. So obviously, those are just examples. You can define your own names for the custom properties and assign your own values to the custom properties, but those are the 4 different types of values that you can assign. A numeric value, a string value between the double quotes, a tag name, or an expression between parentheses. So the applicability, as I mentioned before, is basically 2. You can use custom properties in symbols, in linked symbols. That's a way to encapsulate animations and objects in a single entity, and then create instances of this entity in custom properties is pretty much what is different, what you can customize for each one of those different instances. Or you can use custom properties on windows, screens, typically pop-ups and dialogues, but any kind of screens where you want to dynamically change the information that you display on those screens based on the context. So to have a little bit more hands-on, I will switch now to InduSoft Web Studio and show some examples using those features. So let's create a new project here. Let's say custom property, webinar, afternoon, a brand new project. And let's go step by step. So I'll go to the screen here. For sake of time, I will not spend too much time on the graphical interface, on the drawings. I'll do something simplistic, like for instance, this circle representing the state of a motor, for example. So I can apply the color animation to it, and I can say, let's say I have the tag A, and when the tag A is 0, I show the color red, and when it's 1, I show green, indicating the motor is on, for example. And just for tests, I create here a button and change the caption of this button to command. And when I click on this button, I want to toggle the value of the tag A. Something very simple. I can save this screen as the main screen, right-click and set as a startup, and run it. So obviously, when I click here, I toggle the tag A, and the tag A automatically changes the color of the circle, which is fine, very quick to do, very straightforward. But if I have additional motors in my application, if I want to save time and increase quality, consistency, make sure that all the symbols look the same and operate the same, it's very hard to do all that. If for each one of the motor, I create the circle again, I create the button again. As you see here, the alignment is not the same, the size is not the same. So there is a way to create a linked symbol. So every time that I know I need to repeat a particular interface more than once, that's a good candidate to create a linked symbol. So I literally right-click, select the objects that are part of the symbol, right-click, go to create linked symbol, and give a name to the symbol, like for instance, my motor. Okay? Now I can customize, go to right-click and go to edit linked symbol to customize what properties from this master symbol I want to customize for each one of the instances. So I want to be able to assign a different tag to control the color of each motor. So I create a custom property, let's say with the name motor. So $, motor, colon. So the name of the custom property is motor, and the default value is the tag A. And here in the command, I do the same thing. Motor is the custom property, the default value is the tag A. So I save my linked symbol. And here on the screen, when I double click on my linked symbol, I see the custom property motor and the default value A. If I save and run, you'll see that it keeps working just like before. But the advantage now, if I go to graphics, symbols, under project symbols, you can see your symbol here, my motor. I can place on the screen and assign different tags, different values for this property. For instance, if I have a second motor controlled by the tag B, I just assign here the tag B to the second motor. If I have a third one, just create another instance of the symbol and assign a third tag, for instance, the tag C. So I can save it, and I can control each one of those tags A, B, and C, each one of those motors A, B, and C, by each instance of this linked symbol. But one advantage is, other than the custom property, everything else is common among those symbols. So if I want to make a change on the master symbol, I right-click, I go to Edit Master Symbol, and I can change, for instance, the border here to be gray, to be thinner, and the look and feel of this button, the style for this button, to be, for instance, OS-like. So I have a cleaner, more modern look and feel. I changed the master symbol once, and all the instances of this symbol throughout the whole application are automatically updated. but I can still control each one of them individually through the custom property motor. So that's the first use case, linked symbols. The second use case is screens. What if I want to open a pop-up screen, and in the pop-up screen I show the status of the state of the motor, changing the color of an object, and I want to command as well to control the state of the motor. So let's go back to InduSoft and create a new screen. I'm going to define the size here, let's say 400 by 300. I want it to be a pop-up, a thin border. The title bar will be motor. So I have here my pop-up. Can create a button to close this pop-up. So the caption will be close, and when I click on this button, I want to execute the function close, and let's call this screen motor. So I can save as motor is the name of the screen. Now, let's say I had not created the link symbol. I want to create the interface for my screen. I create here the circle that changes of color according to the custom property motor, by default tag A, and I create a button here, and when I click on this button with the label command, I toggle the motor A. So it's not a link symbol. I'm just creating objects on this screen, in this case a pop-up screen, and assigning custom properties to animations and properties of the objects. So I have a custom property called motor with the default value A for those objects in this screen. I can save it. A nice tip for pop-ups and dialogues is come here to graphics, layout, right-click and select center, and it will automatically change the position of the screen to be on the center of the monitor. So you do not have to manually change the position of the pop-up. Just right-click here and select to the center. Very well. Now you can save, run the application, and here, there you go. And here on the screen, I can create buttons to open this pop-up. So I'm going to create the first button here. Let's say caption A for the motor A. And when I click on this button, I want to open the screen motor. Save it. When I go to the runtime and I click on this button, it opens the pop-up. And as you see here, I control the motor A, which is the default value for the property motor. But what if I want to create another button here to open the pop-up, the same pop-up, but modify the value of the tag B for the motor B? Now, in the open function, there is a way to pass values, replace values to custom properties when opening the screen, when executing the open function. So if you see here the different values for the open function, the first one is the name of the screen, which is mandatory, and then you have the coordinates for the screen. You can dynamically change the size of the screen, x1, y1, x2, y2. By default, I'm going to use -1, which means do not change the position and the size of the pop-up screen. Use whatever was defined when you created the screen. A flag to indicate if the screen is resizable or not. I will say it's not resizable. A unique ID for the screen. We'll talk about this in a few minutes. And the last argument, as you see here, is the list of mnemonics for the screen. So I'm going to define here between quotes, the mnemonic, the custom property motor, between £sign and colon, and then the value for this custom property. I would say the value is B. And just to be consistent, on the first button, I'll do the same thing, but I will set the custom property motor with the value A. and I'll create a third one here, where I will set the custom property motor with the tag C, and change the caption here to C or motor C, just a caption. Now, when I click on the first button, I change the status of the motor A. When I click on the second button, I open the same pop-up, and now in the same pop-up, I can change the values of the tag B. And when I click on the third button, I open exactly the same pop-up, and now I can change the values for the tag B. So it's very easy to reuse the same pop-up, the same screen, and dynamically, depending on the context, depending on the object or button the user clicked, I display and control different tags on the same pop-up. Now, one of the arguments we used here is just before the mnemonics is what's called ID for the screen. So the way it's working, I use the same pop-up for the screen for the motors A, B, and C, but if I'm controlling motor A and I want to control motor B, I have to close this pop-up and then open again the pop-up for motor B. In some cases, you might want to open different instances of the same screen at the same time. So keep the pop-up for motor A and motor B open at the same time. So again, open the same screen, different instances of the same screen at the same time, controlling different tags. And to do that, you can use this argument called screen ID. So let's say that here on the screen A, I want to open a pop-up with the ID 1. For motor B, I want to open the same pop-up motor, but with the ID 2. In the last button, I open the same pop-up, but with the ID 3. I can save it. Now I click on this button. I open this pop-up for the motor A, and you see I can change the value of motor A. And if I click here on the button B, I open the same pop-up, but now in this pop-up, I control the motor B. So you see I can control motor A in this pop-up and motor B on the second pop-up. And I can open the C as well. And I control the motor C with the third pop-up. So all those three pop-ups you are seeing are exactly the same screen. It's one pop-up called motor. But I can control at the same time different tags by using different IDs, unique IDs for each one of those screens. What if I want to display on those screens the ID number for the screen? I can pass the ID number as another custom property. So in addition to motor, I can come here and create another custom property called ID. Could be any name, but I like to use the name ID for this purpose. And I will say the ID has the value 1. And as you see here, you can pass several different custom properties to the object using space to separate them. So ID 1 and motor A. When I click on this button, I set the custom property ID with the value 2 and the custom property motor to the value B, to the tag B. And when I click on this button, I set the ID to 3 and I set the custom property to C. And now here on the motor screen, I can create, for instance, a rectangle and say the ID for this screen is, and display here the value of the tag of the custom property ID. Let's say by default 0, but when I open the screen, I set it to either 1 or 2 or 3. Custom properties are just like tags. If I want to display a custom property in a caption field, I display it between curly braces. If I want to use a custom property in a VB script, I use the prefix $, just like a tag. So if you see here in the close function, whenever you open a screen with the ID different from 0, and you want to close this screen with the close function, all you have to do is define as the second argument the ID of the function. So $, $ID, by default 0. And when I open this screen, I set this ID property with 1, 2, or 3 for each one of the 3 motors. So I save it. Let's go back to the runtime. And you see here, the ID for this screen is 1. The ID for this screen is 2. The ID for this screen is 3. And I can control each one of the 3 motors individually, and I can close each one of those pop-ups individually. Just to make the example a little bit more complete, I can come here and I can pass an additional property, for instance, with a label for the motor. So let's create another custom property called motor name, for example. And for this motor name, I want to pass a string as the value. Now, in VBScript, whenever you want the quote to be part of the value, you write 2 quotes. So the motor name is going to be motor A and 2 quotes again. So those 2 quotes and those 2 quotes are understood by VBScript as a text, as a string value, which is a single quote, just because this is an alphanumeric value set as a value for the custom property motor name. So long story short, I set the custom property motor name to motor A when I click this button. When I click the second button, I want to set the same custom property motor name with the value motor B. And when I click on the third button, I want to set the same property, motor name, with the value motor C. And in the pop-up, if I want to display this label, I can come here and say display here the motor name. By default, nothing. When I open the screen, I set this custom property motor name with either motor A, B, or C. So let's say OK. Let's make it larger here. Save. I open here. You see this is the motor A. I click this one, motor B, and this one, motor C. So I'm sending the tag name, I'm sending a numeric value, and I'm sending a alphanumeric value, a string, as values of custom properties, 3 different custom properties used in the same pop-up. So this is pretty much how you can pass values to the screens, and there are 2 different ways to do that. You can either pass the custom properties in line as the last argument of the open function, but there is an alternative manner to pass custom properties when you are opening a screen. Especially when you have too many custom properties, it may be cumbersome to write all of them as a single argument of the function. So we give you the option to set the last argument of the open function as a file name and save this file in the web subfolder of the application with the extension MNE. And in this file, you can set your custom properties and the values. So let's do that for our example. Let's say that instead of setting here the values for the custom properties in the function, I want to create a text file and define the values of those custom properties in the text file. So I'm going to run the get app path on the database PI. So I can go to the directory of my application, go to the web subfolder, and create a new text file here. So new text document, I can call this document MA for the motor A, .mne, for example. And now edit this object with the values custom property motor, value, tag A. Custom property ID with the value 1. Custom property motor name with the value motor A. There we go. So I can save this file. And now the InduSoft configuration is even easier. Since all the custom properties are already defined in that file, all I have to define in the function is the name of the file, file ma.mne, in the web subfolder of the application. So just by doing that, during the runtime, when I click on this button, it loads from the file the values of the custom property, as you see here, motor A1 and tag A, and set those values to the Popup. So I can do the same thing for the other two motors. So let's make 2 copies. I will call the files MB and MC, and just change the values. ID2, tag B, label motor B. Save. Same thing for the motor C. ID3, motor C, tag C, label motor C. Close. And now InduSoft is very simple. Just copy this and change the file name from MA to MB. Caption B. And same thing for the object C here, for the motor C. Changing the name of the file from MB to MC. Save it. And now if I click here, I see the motor B. If I click here, on this one, I see the motor C and the value 3. And I can control the motor C. And just one thing I forgot to change is the ID here. So this will be the ID 2, and this will be the ID 3. Save it. So I can open each one of those pop-ups individually. Same thing as I did before, but now I configure the custom properties and set the values of the custom properties in simple text files, which can be easier to manage, and you can even create those text files programmatically if you are building generic template applications. So those are the 2 ways you can use to pass custom properties to screens before opening the screens. Either define them as the last arguments of the open function using space to separate them, or you just define the name of a text file and define the custom property values on the text file on the web subfolder of the application with the extension MNE from Mnemonics, just like I did here. The custom properties in Mnemonics are very useful, as just described, to save time and make sure you don't have to redesign screens, redesign objects. Once you grasp the concept and you create the infrastructure, it's very easy from the way this application is right now for me to create additional motors. It's just a matter to create another copy of this file and set the values of the properties. I don't have to worry about the design, the colors. Everything is already done on the pop-up screen. I do not have to redo the pop-up screen. But there are special scenarios where the custom properties become even more powerful, even more important to save time. And there are 3 scenarios that I'd like to demonstrate. The first one is using tag fields. So most of you should know that tag fields are pretty much pre-built properties, attributes of any tags in InduSoft that do not count for the tag count on your license, and provide information about your tag. We have fields like min and max, which shows the minimum and maximum value supported by the tags. Units, where you can define the engineering unit. Pounds, PSI, kilo, whatever it is. You have timestamp, you have quality, you have alarm limits, high limits, low limits, high limits, low limits, acknowledgement, if the alarm is active or not. So any tag in InduSoft has several fields, what we call tag fields, attributes, associated to the tags. And the syntax to access the tag fields is tag name, dash greater than, and the name of the tag field. The power of the custom properties with tag fields is you can define a single tag property, custom property name, and link different tag fields from the same tag to the same custom property name. So just by changing the value of this custom property, we change the main tag name, but we keep the fields. So if you want to create a pop-up where you show the minimum value, the maximum value, the engineering units, the high limits, the alarm status, everything, you don't need to create one custom property for each one of them. You just define one custom property, and when you change the tag for the custom property, all the fields, all the tag fields are automatically replaced for the new tag. So let's see how it works in a practical sense. I already have in this pop-up the custom property motor for the tag A. Let's say that I want to display here the timestamp when the motor, when the tag A changes. So I can use the same custom property, motor, tag A, but now I want to show the timestamp for this tag. Say OK, save it. When I go to the runtime, you see that automatically for each one of the motors A, B, and C, I display the timestamp when each respective tag, when each respective motor was turned on or off. In other words, the timestamp from the tags. And I didn't have to change the three instances, the three buttons to open those pop-up screens, because I have a single custom property called motor associated both with the tag motor, with the tag A, and with the field timestamp from the tag A. So by replacing tag A by tag B, I automatically replace the tag B for the timestamp as well. And I replace the tag C for the timestamp as well in the last pop-up screen. So I did a quick example just with timestamp, but imagine you have a pop-up with several tag fields for limits, for alarms, for acknowledgement, for quality, for timestamp, for description, for minimum value, for maximum value. With a single custom property, you can replace the tag associated with all those fields. Very powerful, very quick to configure and to maintain and modify in the future. So that's the first special case when you assign a single custom property name to different tag fields. The second one is similar, but using class tags. As you probably know, in InduSoft, you have the ability to create classes and assign members to those class tags. Similarly to the tag fields, you can assign a single custom property name to different members of the same class tag. And when you assign this custom property to a different class tag, all the members are automatically remapped to the new class tag. Let's see how it works. So to use class tags, I'm going to go to global and create a new class. Let's say class PID. And I'll create different members for this class, like setpoint, PV, output. And let's say I have two PIDs in my process. So I'm going to create the tag PID A and PID B. And they are both from the class CPID, right? So I'm going to create another pop-up screen here. Say size 300 by 300. I want it to be a pop-up with thin border, and the title bar should be PID. I create a button to close this PID screen. So label close. When I click here, I want to close the PID screen, and I want to display the three members. So set point, and here on this object, I want to show the tag PID A.setPoint. But I want to make it dynamic. I want to be able to open this pop-up and show, for instance, the PID B.setPoint. So I make it a custom property called, for example, PID. Could be any name, but #, custom property name, colon, default value, PID A.setPoint. So I'll do the same thing for PV. Same custom property name, PID, different member, PV. And finally, I'll do the same thing for the output. So out, text data link, same custom property, PID, different member from the tag PID A. And I will enable the data inputs so I can write values and see if they are different during the runtime. Again, to make this pop up on the center of my monitor, I can go to Graphics, Layout, right-click, and select Sender. Save this screen as PID, for example. And now, to open this screen, I can create a button here on the screen. And when I click on this button, I want to open the pop-up to PID A. So here in the command, I'll open the screen PID. And the only property I want to set, so between quotes here, is the property PID with the value tag PID A. And another button for the PID B, the only thing that I have to change is set the custom property PID to the tag PID B. I change the label here to B. Save it. Come here, click on this button. I see the values for PID A, let's say 1, 2, 3. And when I click on this button, I see the values for the PID B, let's say 10, 20, 30. And as you see here, if I click on PID A, I see 1, 2, 3. When I click on PID B, I see 10, 20, 30. So I did for 2 PID faceplates, but now I can create for 100, for 1,000,000 PID loops, and I do not have to recreate 100 screens, 1,000,000 screens for each one of the PIDs. And better than that, if you want to enhance the look and feel of the PID screen, you do it just once in a single pop-up screen, and you do not have to change the buttons, the instances from the application that open this pop-up. So very simple to do and very powerful to replace the main tag name from a class to another main tag name from the same class using custom properties. The third and final use case scenario is replace the main tag name and keep the array indexes that were used in the pop-up screen. So for the last example, I'll create here 2 array tags. So let's say tag array, tag A, tag B, for example. And I'll make them arrays of 3 positions. Okay? Now I'll create another pop-up. Let's say the size 300 by 300. Thing, pop-up, label array. I'll create a button to close the screen. Close. When I click on this button, I want to execute the function close array. And here I want to show, let's create something different from the other screen, a text box. Let's say in this text box, I want to show the tag A, index 1, but I will create a custom property called, for instance, list. Could be any name, it's just a placeholder for this custom property. And in this one, I use the tag A, index 1. In this other text box, same custom property, same tag, but index 2. And in this other text box, same custom property list, same tag name TA, but array 3. So I'm displaying and changing the array index 1, 2, and 3 from the tag A in this pop-up. Can change this pop-up name to array, could be any name. And here I can create a button to open the screen array and set the custom property list with the value TA, tag A, and change here the label to array TA, and this other one to the array TB. And the only thing I have to change here is replace the tag TA by the tag TB, but keep the array indexes. So let's save it. And by the way, here in the array, I can go to Graphics, Layout, right-click and Center. So the screen, the pop-up will be opened in the center of the monitor. I click here. I see the values for tag A, index 1, 2, and 3. Let's say 100, 200, 300. And if I go to array B, now I see the tag B, index 1, let's say -10, index 2, -200, index 3, -300. And as you see, if I click on array TA, I see the values from TA, index 1, 2, and 3. And if I click on the button array TB, I see the values for the tag TB, index 1, 2, and 3. So again, changing one custom property, I change the tag name for all the array positions in that particular pop-up. That's the third and last scenario that I would like to show with the custom property to very easily and very quickly change several values on the screen, changing just the value from one custom property, only one main tag name. So with that, I would like to open for Q&A. If you have any questions, feel free to write them on the chat box at the top of your monitor, or on the Q&A box also from the WebEx bar on the top of your monitor. So one question here, if there is a limit on the number of pop-ups that you open simultaneously. No, we do not impose any limits whatsoever. Obviously, if you create a script or something to open thousands or millions of pop-ups, eventually you're going to use all the resources from the computer. But even from a practical point of view, it does not make sense to open at the same time that many pop-ups, that many screens at the same time. So since we do not impose any limitation, from a practical point of view, you can open as many instances of a given screen simultaneously as you need. So another question is, will this webinar be available on the InduSoft website? That's a lot of good information. It would be nice to have this for reference. Thank you, and absolutely yes. So just to show really quick here for everybody, if you go to InduSoft.com, under Support, Video Library, Webinars, every webinar that we host, we eventually upload to the website and make available for you here from the website. So you can click on any webinar and either watch it live from the website or download, and we make the PowerPoint presentation available there as well. So in no more than a couple of days, this webinar, including the PowerPoint presentation and including this example application I built, will be available at this link under InduSoft.com support webinars. and you can watch the presentation again, download the application and the PowerPoint presentation as well. And in the meantime, if you have any questions, feel free to contact us, and we'll be able to provide any additional information you might need. Very well. Let's see if there are any other questions. One question is, are the custom properties supported on the thin client? The answer is yes. The custom properties are available on the Secure Viewer thin client, on the Web thin client, and on the SMA thin client. In the current version, there are some limitations, but in the upcoming release that we're planning for April on patch 3, they will be fully supported on the SMA thin client as well. So, good question. Let's see what else. Another question is, can you show 2 dynamic tags in one caption text box? The answer is yes. So using custom properties or not, when you go to a caption button, you can concatenate values with fixed text, just like I have here, at the same time. So in this caption box here, I'm showing the value from ID, from the motor name, and the motor timestamp. So 3 different captions, 3 different dynamic tags or custom properties at the same time on the same caption. Even if you're not using custom properties, you can do that, and they could be on the same line or in different lines. So just to show an example really quick here. In the caption for this button, I can show something like the value of the tag date, space, the value of the tag time between parentheses, right? Between curly braces. Save it, and during the runtime, you see here the value of the tag date, the value of the tag time. So 2 different tags dynamically being shown on the caption for this button. And could be either tags or expressions. Could be things like the tag second times 100, for example. And save it. So you see the date, the time, and the tag second times 100, and so on and so forth. So any caption field, you can write tag names, expressions, values, or custom properties that can be assigned to tag values, to literal values, or to expressions between curly braces. Well, is the tag field functionality for custom properties available since version 8 only? Good question, and no. The functionality that I'm describing here is available also in previous versions, many previous versions of the product, including version 7, even version 6, but we have improved some of the special scenarios that I described in version 7.1. So if you intend to use those features to the full extent, I would recommend to use version 7.1 or version 8. And as a general recommendation, whenever possible, I would recommend to use always the latest version available in the product because it always includes the stability enhancements from previous versions and new enhancements, new features. Like, for instance, the mnemonics, the custom properties will be fully available in the upcoming patch 3 for version 8, not for version 7. But for the local viewer, for the Windows thin client, those capabilities here are available in version 8 and 7.1 as well. Good questions. At this point, I think we covered all the questions. And since I do not see additional ones, I would like just to close here again, thanking each one of you and all of you for taking the time to watch the webinar. Hopefully, we provided information that will be useful for your project. If you have any additional questions, please do not hesitate to contact InduSoft through the website, email, or phone. And hopefully, we'll see you again in the next InduSoft webinar. Again, thank you very much for your time, and have a great day or great evening wherever you are. Thank you all.